First, CONTATT and Israel. The message arrived on a Thursday. After centuries of broadcasting into the void, humanity's first extraterrestrial contact came not as a response to our endless stream of radio waves, television signals, and deliberate greetings. Instead, a massive vessel simply appeared at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, its sudden presence triggering every deep space monitoring system Earth had deployed. "This can't be right," Dr. Eleanor Chen muttered, staring at the readings flooding her terminal at the Lunar Observatory. The object had appeared instantaneously. No approach vector, no deceleration. Simply there where nothing had been moments before. A perfect sphere, 12 kilometers in diameter, composed of materials that scattered their sensors in impossible ways. 24 hours later, the message arrived on all frequencies, in perfect English and simultaneously in every other human language. "Greetings, Earthborn sentients. The Galactic Assembly acknowledges your civilization's development. We will arrive to conduct formal evaluation proceedings. Prepare your representatives." Global panic lasted approximately 72 hours before the pragmatism that had defined humanity's survival instinct for millennia took hold. The United Earth Coalition, a loose federation of nation-states that had formed in the wake of the climate wars of the 2060s, convened an emergency session. Dr. Chen found herself assigned to the newly formed First Contact Commission, alongside military leaders, political representatives, and other scientific experts. Their mission: prepare humanity for its introduction to the galactic community. "What exactly does evaluation proceedings mean?" asked General Amara Okafor, the African Union's highest-ranking military officer. Dr. Sato, a xenolinguistics specialist, adjusted his glasses. "The phrasing suggests a test or assessment. They're coming to judge us." "Judge us by what standards?" UEC President Martinez asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. They would soon find out. The Assembly delegation arrived exactly 14 Earth days after their initial message. 3 smaller vessels, still dwarfing anything humanity had built, descended through the atmosphere and landed with impossible precision on the vast platform constructed in the international waters of the Pacific. Dr. Chen stood beside President Martinez as the delegation emerged. 7 distinct species of alien beings, each more bizarre than the last. The apparent leader stood on 4 tentacle-like limbs, its upper body branching into 3 distinct torsos, each with its own set of manipulator appendages and sensory clusters. Its skin shifted through patterns of light that seemed to serve as both decoration and communication. "I am Coordinator Zixtal." The being's voice emerged from a small device floating beside it. "Senior Evaluator for the Galactic Assembly's Civilizational Integration Committee." The first week of evaluation proceeded with meticulous thoroughness. The aliens examined human technology, governance structures, cultural artifacts, and historical records. They collected biological samples, studied Earth's ecosystems, and interviewed representatives from various nations and disciplines. Dr. Chen served as the scientific liaison, answering countless questions about humanity's understanding of physics, mathematics, and biology. She found herself increasingly disturbed by the dismissive reactions of the Assembly representatives. "Your propulsion theories are quaint," commented a hovering crystalline being that introduced itself as Technical Observer Kiln 7. "Though I suppose without proper guidance, you've done remarkably well for such a young species." During the second week, the Assembly representatives requested presentations on human history. This proved to be a turning point. "You've had 17 major global conflicts in the past 500 years. Asked Zixtal, its skin patterns flashing what the humans had learned to recognize as alarm. "We've learned from each one," President Martinez replied diplomatically. "Our capacity for violence has been matched by our capacity for reconciliation and growth." "Interesting perspective," Zixtal responded, its patterns now indicating what the translation device labeled as skeptical amusement. On the final day of the 3-week evaluation, the Assembly delegation returned to their ships without explanation, leaving humanity in suspense for 48 hours. When they returned, they requested a formal meeting with Earth's Leadership Council. Dr. Chen sat beside General Okafor as Coordinator Zixtal delivered the Assembly's verdict. The Galactic Assembly has completed its evaluation of Earth civilization. Zixtal began, its patterns shifting to formal configuration. While we acknowledge certain promising elements, particularly your adaptability and technological progress despite your isolation, we have identified concerning developmental patterns. The room tensed as the alien continued. Your species demonstrates excessive aggression, unpredictable emotional responses, and concerning resource consumption patterns. Furthermore, your technological development path exhibits potentially dangerous divergences from established assembly standards. President Martinez leaned forward. What exactly does this assessment mean for Earth's relationship with the Galactic Assembly? The Assembly extends provisional protectorate status to Earth, Zixtal announced. Under these terms, Earth will receive limited technological assistance, primarily focused on environmental restoration and sustainable energy. Human expansion will be restricted to your solar system for a probationary period of no less than 500 standard cycles. All military development and certain areas of scientific research will require Assembly oversight and approval. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the human delegation. And if we find these terms unacceptable? General Okafor asked, her voice carefully controlled. This is not a negotiation, replied another alien, a serpentine creature that had introduced itself as legal observer Seth. Protectorate status is a generous accommodation for a species at your developmental stage. Many civilizations wait millennia for such recognition. We request time to consider your offer, President Martinez stated firmly. Of course, Zixtal's patterns shifted to what appeared to be condescending patience. You have 30 days to formalize acceptance. We understand this may be difficult for your kind to process. The debate that followed divided humanity. Some argued that any relationship with advanced civilizations was better than none, that humanity could learn and grow even under restrictions. Others viewed the terms as thinly veiled subjugation. Dr. Chen found herself increasingly in the latter camp as she reviewed the technical appendices of the Assembly's offer. Their assistance would redirect human development away from several promising research areas, including quantum gravity manipulation and consciousness transfer technologies, which the Assembly classified as destabilizing innovations. They're not helping us, she explained during a critical council session. They're containing us. 3 weeks after the Assembly's offer, Earth delivered its response. The human delegation, now led by General Okafor, at the insistence of the more skeptical nations, met with the Assembly representatives at the same Pacific platform. The United Earth Coalition thanks the Galactic Assembly for its evaluation and offer. General Okafor began, her voice steady and confident. After careful consideration of the terms presented, Earth has reached its decision. Zixtal's patterns shifted expectantly. We respectfully decline. The translation devices around the room seemed to pause, as if struggling to process the response. Zixtal's patterns froze momentarily before erupting in rapid flashes. There appears to be a translation error, stated Seth, the serpentine legal observer. No civilization has ever declined protectorate status. There is no error, General Okafor confirmed. Humanity has decided to chart its own course of development. We wish the Assembly well, but we will proceed independently. This is unprecedented, Zixtal finally managed, its patterns still chaotic and profoundly unwise. The galaxy contains dangers your species cannot comprehend without Assembly protection. We understand the risks, Dr. Chen interjected, stepping forward. We accept them. This emotional response is precisely why your species requires guidance, Kilm 7 stated. You react with primitive pride rather than logical assessment. General Okafor smiled slightly. Our decision is neither emotional nor prideful. It is strategic. The terms offered would limit humanity's growth for centuries. We've calculated that independence, even with its risks, presents better long-term prospects. You may reconsider, Zixtel said, rising to its full height. The offer remains open for one standard galactic year. We've prepared formal notification of our decision, General Okafor replied, activating a data transfer to the assembly systems. Including our declaration of sovereign space, Earth will maintain a 5-light-year buffer zone around Sol. We request no assembly vessels enter this space without explicit permission. The assembly delegation departed Earth orbit within hours, their departure as abrupt as their arrival had been. From observation platforms around the world, humans watched the massive spherical ship vanish instantaneously, leaving no trace of its presence except the profound knowledge that humanity was not alone, and not welcome as equals. They'll be back, President Martinez said as she stood beside Dr. Chen at the Lunar Observatory, watching the empty space where the assembly ship had been. They expect us to fail, to come crawling back when we realize how much we need them. Dr. Chen nodded, her eyes fixed on the stars beyond. Then we'd better get to work proving them wrong. Silent Evolution. 25 years passed like the blink of an eye in galactic terms. To the assembly, it was barely a moment. To humanity, it was a generation of transformation. Director Eleanor Chen, her hair now silver, but her determination undiminished, stood in the observation dome of Phoenix Station, watching as the experimental vessel Audacity prepared for its first long-range test. At 68, she had dedicated the past quarter-century to leading Earth's Scientific Development Authority, the organization born from humanity's refusal to accept second-class status in the cosmos. Power systems nominal, gravimetric field stable, reported the young engineer beside her, Commander Tariq Rahman, whose parents had been children when the assembly ships departed. The displacement drive is ready for activation. Dr. Chen nodded, watching the sleek vessel poised at the edge of Jupiter's orbit. Proceed with the test. The Audacity wasn't supposed to exist, at least not according to the Assembly's technological development models. It represented the culmination of a theoretical framework the Assembly had explored and abandoned centuries ago, deeming it an inefficient dead end. Unbound by Assembly doctrine, human scientists had made it work. The ship vanished, leaving no energy signature or distortion. 73 seconds later, it reappeared precisely at its designated arrival coordinates beyond Neptune's orbit. A cheer erupted throughout Phoenix Station. Commander Rahman grinned as he studied the incoming data. Perfect dimensional fold and reintegration. The drive performed 22% beyond projected efficiency. The assembly told us this was impossible, Dr. Chen said quietly, satisfaction evident in her voice. They were wrong. The displacement drive represented just one of humanity's divergent technological paths. Without assembly constraints, human innovation had accelerated in directions the galactic community had long ago abandoned or forbidden. In the decades following Earth's rejection of protectorate status, the Assembly had maintained distant observation posts at the edge of the solar system. They watched, expecting to see human civilization collapse without guidance or stagnate without access to Assembly knowledge. Instead, they observed a puzzling pattern of development that their models couldn't properly interpret. Twice, Assembly scout ships had approached the 5-light-year boundary to conduct closer observations. Each time, they found automated warning beacons and defensive platforms that shouldn't have been possible with Earth's technological level. The message was clear. Humanity was serious about its independence. What the Assembly couldn't detect from their distant observation posts was the true extent of human advancement. Station status. Dr. Chen asked as she and Commander Rahman descended to Phoenix Station's Central Command Center. All 7 deep colonies report nominal operations, replied Admiral Helena Okafor, daughter of the general who had delivered humanity's refusal to the Assembly 25 years earlier. Proxima Settlement has completed its agricultural dome ahead of schedule. Tau Ceti Base has detected promising mineral deposits on the 3rd planet. And our defensive grid, fully operational throughout Sol, and extended coverage at 97% for the colonial systems. The deep colonies represented humanity's greatest secret, 7 settlement outposts established on promising worlds within 15 light-years of Earth. Using displacement technology, humans had expanded beyond their solar system without detection, establishing footholds among the stars, while the Assembly believed them contained within their own planetary system. Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. And the Assembly? Still maintaining observation at the periphery, Admiral Okafor replied. Their last probe approached the boundary 6 months ago, scanned our outer defensive grid, and retreated. Their activity has been declining steadily over the past decade. I believe they're losing interest in us. Their arrogance works in our favor, Commander Raman observed. They can't conceive that we'd succeed where others failed. That evening, Dr. Chen addressed the Directorate Council in Phoenix Station's Assembly Hall. Representatives from Earth and all 7 colonies participated, some physically present, others attending via quantum entanglement communication, another technology the Assembly had deemed inefficient, but that humans had perfected. Phase 1 of the Independence Initiative is now complete, Dr. Chen announced. Our colonial network is established and self-sustaining. Our defensive capabilities exceed projections, and today, the displacement drive has proven itself ready for full implementation. UEC President Adebayo, who had succeeded Martinez 15 years earlier, spoke from Earth. Then we are prepared to begin Phase 2. Yes, Dr. Chen confirmed. It's time to expand our reach beyond the immediate stellar neighborhood. The exploratory course has identified 12 promising systems within 30 light-years that show no evidence of Assembly monitoring. Not everyone supported the aggressive expansion strategy. Some council members advocated for a more cautious approach, consolidating their existing achievements before reaching further. The Assembly has forgotten about us, argued colonial representative peers from Ta City. Why risk drawing their attention again? We have everything we need within our current sphere. They haven't forgotten. Admiral Okafor countered. They're simply waiting. Assembly records indicated they've watched other species for centuries before re-engaging. We can't become complacent. Besides, added Dr. Chen, expansion isn't merely about territory. Each new world, each new environment and challenge accelerates our adaptability and innovation. Stagnation is a greater risk than discovery. The vote passed with a strong majority. Phase 2 would commence immediately, with construction beginning on long-range colonization vessels equipped with the new displacement drive. 6 months later, as humanity prepared its next great leap, the first sign of trouble appeared. An unidentified vessel materialized without warning near the Proxima Centauri settlement. Unlike the massive assembly ships of first contact, this was a small, agile craft that immediately engaged evasive maneuvers when colonial defense systems activated. Definitely not assembly design, Commander Raman noted, studying the sensor data forwarded to Phoenix Station. The energy signature doesn't match anything in our database. Pirates, suggested Admiral Okafor. The Assembly mentioned the galaxy contained dangers. Possibly, Dr. Chen replied. Or perhaps another independent species. Either way, we need to establish contact, or capture them if necessary. The intruder managed to evade colonial forces for nearly 48 hours before a cordon of defense craft finally surrounded it near Proxima's outer asteroid belt. With no avenue of escape, the vessel powered down its systems in apparent surrender. Colonial security forces, led by Major Diana Okafor, the Admiral's niece, boarded the alien craft with careful precision. What they found inside was unexpected. A single pilot, unconscious but alive, belonging to a species not included in the Assembly's delegation to Earth. The being was transported to the Colonial Medical Facility, where it regained consciousness under careful supervision. After initial communication difficulties, the colony's linguistic specialists managed to establish a rudimentary translation protocol. I am Scout Captain Nexar of the Free Collective, the alien explained, its voice translated through a modified version of the system humans had developed after first contact. I was dispatched to investigate anomalous energy signatures in this sector. What is the Free Collective? Major Okafor asked. We are refugees, escapees, species who have rejected assembly control. The revelation sent shockwaves through human leadership. They were not the first to reject the assembly's terms. Over the next several days, as the translation improved, Nexar explained the true nature of the galactic political landscape. The assembly presents itself as the benevolent administrator of galactic civilization. The alien explained during a secure briefing attended remotely by Dr. Chen and other directorate leaders. In reality, it is a consortium of 7 elder species who maintain control through technological superiority and resource manipulation. The 7 species we met during first contact, Dr. Chen realized. Yes, they evaluate emerging civilizations not for their potential, but for the threat they might pose to assembly dominance. Species that show promise in divergent technological paths are either controlled through protectorate status or isolated until they can be properly contained. And the Free Collective? Asked Admiral Okafor. We are 18 species from 12 star systems who have managed to escape assembly influence. We exist in the shadows, in regions the assembly considers uninhabitable or unimportant. We survive through stealth and mobility. Why approach us now? Commander Raman questioned. Your energy signatures. The technology you call the displacement drive creates distinctive ripples in space-time. We detected them, but so will the assembly, eventually. I was sent to determine if you represented a new assembly initiative, or something more interesting. Dr. Chen leaned forward. And your assessment? For the first time, the alien's facial features arranged into what might have been a smile. I believe the assembly has made a significant miscalculation with your species. 2 days later, as Nexar's ship prepared to depart with coordinates for a rendezvous with Free Collective representatives, long-range sensors detected 5 assembly vessels approaching the 5 light-year boundary around Sol. The assembly had returned, and they were not coming for a friendly visit. The Table East turn. This is a direct violation of our territorial declaration, Admiral Okafor stated, watching the holographic projection as 5 assembly vessels crossed the boundary humanity had established 25 years earlier. They're sending a message. Dr. Chen nodded gravely. Phoenix Station's command center had transformed into crisis headquarters as humanity faced its first direct confrontation with the Galactic Assembly since rejection of protectorate status. They're proceeding slowly, deliberately, Commander Raman observed. Not an attack formation. They want us to notice them, to feel threatened. President Adebayo's voice joined the conversation from Earth. Is it possible they've discovered our colonies or made contact with the Free Collective? Unlikely, Dr. Chen replied. According to Nexar, the collective has remained hidden for centuries. More probable is that the assembly has finally decided we've been given enough time to reconsider their offer. The decision facing humanity's leadership was momentous. Confrontation with the technologically superior assembly could prove disastrous. Yet capitulation now, after 25 years of independent development, was unthinkable. Deploy the defense grid to standby status, Admiral Okafor ordered. No aggressive posture, but full readiness. And activate the Veil Protocol for all colonial systems. The Veil Protocol was a specialized application of displacement technology, creating localized space-time distortions that effectively rendered human colonies invisible to conventional detection methods. It was energy-intensive and couldn't be maintained indefinitely, but it would keep humanity's greatest secrets safe during the coming encounter. What about the diplomatic approach? Asked Colonial Representative Pierce. Perhaps we can negotiate from a position of strength now, rather than the weakness they perceived before. Dr. Chen considered this. We should prepare to engage diplomatically, but on our terms, not theirs. Let them come to us. The assembly fleet halted just within the Jupiter orbit, maintaining formation. For 72 hours, they took no further action, simply holding position. Finally, a transmission arrived, directed to Earth's leadership. The Galactic Assembly acknowledges human territorial claims, began the message, delivered in the same perfect translations as before. Coordinator Zixtalt requests a diplomatic meeting with authorized representatives to discuss matters of mutual concern. The tone was markedly different from the condescension of first contact, almost cautious. They're uncertain, Dr. Chen realized. Something has changed their approach. The meeting was arranged at Lunar Base Alpha, the first major human installation beyond Earth and a symbol of humanity's early steps into space. Unlike the Assembly's Evaluation Committee 25 years earlier, only 3 representatives arrived. Coordinator Zixtal, legal observer Seth, and a new figure introduced as strategic analyst Kirax, a hovering entity composed of interlocking geometric shapes that pulsed with inner light. Dr. Chen, now serving as Earth's chief negotiator alongside Admiral Okafor and President Adebayo, was struck by subtle changes in Zixtal's demeanor. The coordinator's skin patterns displayed what their improved translation systems identified as cautious respect, a far cry from the dismissive patterns of their first encounter. The Assembly acknowledges that human development has proceeded. Unexpectedly, Zixtal began after formal greetings were exchanged. We have observed technological signatures that diverge significantly from projected models. We chose our own path, Dr. Chen replied simply, as was our right. Indeed, Zixtal's patterns shifted rapidly. However, certain technologies you appear to be developing may have destabilizing consequences beyond your understanding. Admiral Okafor leaned forward. You refer to our displacement system. The geometric entity, Kirax, rotated several of its components in apparent surprise. You have named it already. Impressive. Our records indicated such technology was beyond your theoretical framework at last assessment. We found Assembly assessments to be somewhat limited in their perspective, President Adebayo stated diplomatically. Legal observer Seth undulated forward. The Assembly's concern is not merely academic. Dimensional displacement technology has been classified as a Tier 1 restricted innovation due to its potential for catastrophic misapplication. By misapplication, you mean uses that might challenge Assembly dominance, Dr. Chen suggested, watching their reactions carefully. Zixtal's patterns froze momentarily, a tell they'd learned to recognize as surprise or alarm. You have been misinformed. The Assembly exists to maintain galactic stability and promote safe technological advancement. Yet you offer technological assistance only under terms that restrict independent development, Admiral Okafor countered. Curious definition of promotion. The meeting continued for hours, a careful dance of probing questions and measured responses. The Assembly representatives never directly acknowledged humanity's colonies beyond Sol, but several questions hinted at suspicions regarding the extent of human expansion. Finally, Zixtal shifted to what appeared to be a formal diplomatic configuration. The Assembly proposes an adjusted relationship with Earth civilization. In recognition of your demonstrated capabilities, we extend an offer of associate status, with substantially fewer restrictions than protectorate terms. President Adebayo exchanged glances with Dr. Chen before responding. We appreciate the gesture. However, humanity is no longer interested in subordinate status of any kind. We would consider equal partnership, nothing less. Impossible, Seth interjected immediately. Associate status is already unprecedented for a species at your developmental stage. And yet here we are, Admiral Okafor said calmly, discussing terms rather than receiving dictates. Much has changed in 25 years. The meeting adjourned without resolution, both sides agreeing to continue discussions the following day. As the Assembly representatives returned to their vessel, humanity's leadership convened to analyze the encounter. They're afraid, Dr. Chen concluded. Not of us specifically, but of what we represent. Independent development outside their control. Nexar mentioned other species have tried and failed to escape Assembly influence. Commander Raman noted. What's different about us? Speed. Admiral Okafor suggested. We've advanced faster than their models predicted. and direction. We've pursued technologies they abandoned or restricted. President Adebayo nodded thoughtfully. The question is whether they're here to genuinely negotiate or to assess the extent of the threat we pose before taking more drastic action. The answer came sooner than expected. As lunar night fell, long-range sensors detected massive energy surges from the assembly fleet. Simultaneously, quantum communications from the deep colonies reported unusual disturbances in nearby systems. Assembly scout ships appearing without warning near colonial space, though still unable to penetrate the Veil Protocol's protective distortions. They're searching, Admiral Okafor realized. They suspect we've expanded beyond Sol, but can't locate our settlements. Before humanity could formulate a response, a priority communication arrived, not from the assembly vessels, but from deep space, carried by quantum entanglement channels developed for colonial communication. "This is Envoy Keller of the Free Collective Council," began the message, accompanied by authentication codes matching those Nexar had provided. "We have intercepted assembly communications indicating immediate plans for containment action against Earth. A specialized suppression fleet has been dispatched from the Rigel staging area." "Suppression fleet?" President Adebayo questioned, alarm evident in her voice. "The Assembly maintains specialized forces for dealing with civilizations that develop beyond predicted parameters," Dr. Chen explained, recalling information from Nexar's briefings. "They've used them 3 times in recorded history. The Free Collective offers alliance," continued Keller's message. "Our combined technologies may provide advantage against assembly forces. Representatives are en route to coordinates attached. Time is critical. Humanity faced its most crucial decision since rejecting protectorate status. Trust an unknown collective of assembly refugees, or attempt to negotiate with an entity that apparently planned their subjugation even while diplomacy proceeded. We need more information before committing," argued Representative Pierce. "We need more allies before the suppression fleet arrives," countered Admiral Okafor. Dr. Chen, who had spent a lifetime studying both human potential and assembly limitations, made the decisive argument. "The Assembly fears independent development because their power relies on technological control. If the Free Collective has survived outside that control, their knowledge combined with ours represents the first real challenge to Assembly dominance in millennia." The decision was made. A diplomatic mission, led by Commander Raman, departed immediately via displacement drive to meet the Free Collective representatives at the designated coordinates, a rogue planetoid in an uncharted system 40 light-years from Earth. Meanwhile, Dr. Chen prepared to meet with the Assembly delegation the following day with a calculated strategy. "The Assembly must believe we are more valuable as partners than as subjects," she explained to President Adebayo and Admiral Okafor. "We won't reveal our colonies or our contact with the collective, but we'll demonstrate enough advancement to make them reconsider their approach." When Zixtal and the other Assembly representatives arrived for the second day of negotiations, they found the human delegation expanded to include scientists and military leaders from Phoenix Station, a facility whose existence had been carefully concealed until now. "Before we continue yesterday's discussions," Dr. Chen began, "we'd like to address the increased assembly activity both within our declared territory and in neighboring systems." Zixtal's patterns shifted rapidly in what they now recognized as agitation. Standard security protocols. Nothing that should concern Earth leadership, including the suppression fleet dispatched from Rigel. Admiral Okafor asked directly. The reaction was immediate and unmistakable. Furax's geometric components spun in disarray while Seth's serpentine form coiled defensively. Zixtal's patterns froze completely before resolving into formal diplomatic configuration. "Such allegations are unfounded," the coordinator stated, but the patterns betrayed uncertainty. "The Assembly seeks peaceful resolution to all concerns. We believe transparency serves everyone's interests," President Adebayo said firmly. "Therefore, we feel it necessary to demonstrate certain capabilities before negotiations proceed further." At a signal from Admiral Okafor, the main view screen activated, showing a live feed from Phoenix Station. The experimental vessel Audacity positioned itself within view, its sleek form unlike anything the assembly had seen in human hands before. Observer Kilm 7 once called our propulsion theories quaint, Dr. Chen noted with a small smile. We've made some improvements since then. On screen, the Audacity activated its displacement drive. Unlike conventional faster-than-light travel, there was no energy buildup, no distortion field. The ship simply vanished. 5 seconds later, it reappeared precisely 50 astronomical units away, a distance that would take conventional assembly ships hours to traverse. Impossible, Kurak stated, its components realigning into what appeared to be an analytical configuration. Our models indicated at least 70 more years of development before such technology would be viable in human hands. Your models failed to account for human ingenuity when freed from artificial constraints, Admiral Okafor replied. The demonstration continued, revealing several key technologies humanity had perfected outside assembly doctrine. Not everything. The colonies remained secret, as did many of their most advanced defensive systems, but enough to make the assembly representatives reassess their assumptions. The assembly must understand, President Adebayo concluded, that humanity will not accept subordinate status. We are prepared to defend our independence with all necessary means. Such confrontation would benefit neither party, Zixtel said, patterns now showing what their translation system identified as calculated reconsideration. We agree, Dr. Chen responded, which is why we propose a different model entirely. Not protectorate, not associate, but equal diplomatic recognition. As the negotiations intensified, Commander Raman's mission to meet the Free Collective representatives reached a critical juncture. The rendezvous revealed not just a few refugee ships, but an entire hidden settlement built within the hollowed planetoid. A community of 7 different species living beyond assembly control. We have monitored humanity's progress since your rejection of protectorate status, explained Council Elder Vex, a crystalline being similar to but distinct from the assembly's Kiln 7. Your species has accomplished in decades what took others centuries. The assembly has ruled through technological superiority for millennia, added another counselor, a massive entity composed of what appeared to be living metal. But their innovation has stagnated. They no longer develop, they merely maintain. The Free Collective offered humanity not just alliance but integration into a growing network of independent civilizations developing beyond assembly restrictions. Their combined knowledge included technologies the assembly had suppressed for millennia, deemed too unpredictable or destabilizing for their carefully controlled galactic order. Your displacement drive, noted Vex, was independently developed by the Telnar 4,000 years ago. When they refused protectorate status, the assembly labeled it dangerous and destabilizing. The Telnar civilization was quarantined, isolated until they eventually accepted assembly terms. What's different about humans? Commander Raman asked. Speed and secrecy, replied the metal entity. You advanced faster than their models predicted, and you concealed your most significant developments. And now, the assembly faces something unprecedented. The possibility of multiple independent technological bases emerging simultaneously. The implications were profound. As Commander Raman prepared to return to Earth with the collective's proposals, long-range sensors detected the assembly suppression fleet changing course directly toward Sol. Back on Luna, negotiations had reached an impasse. Despite the demonstrations, the assembly representatives insisted on oversight provisions that humanity found unacceptable. Then, during a recess, Dr. Chen received word of the approaching suppression fleet. We know about the fleet, Coordinator, she stated bluntly when the session resumed. Your diplomatic overtures were merely a delaying tactic. A precautionary measure only, Zixtal insisted, though its patterns showed clear discomfort. Standard protocol for potential integration challenges. Integration or subjugation? Admiral Okafor asked pointedly. Before the coordinator could respond, an aide rushed into the chamber, delivering an urgent message to the assembly delegation. Zixtal's patterns immediately shifted to what their translation system identified as severe alarm. "We must suspend negotiations temporarily," the coordinator announced, rising abruptly. "An urgent situation requires our attention." As the assembly representatives hurriedly departed, humanity's leadership received their own urgent update. Commander Raman had returned with representatives from the Free Collective, and the news they brought changed everything. "The suppression fleet isn't just coming for Earth," Commander Raman explained. "They're targeting 3 other emerging civilizations simultaneously. The Assembly is attempting to contain what they see as a systemic threat to their dominance." "But that's not all," added Envoy Keller, a slender being whose translucent skin revealed complex internal structures. "Our long-range scouts have detected something unprecedented approaching from the galactic core, a spatial anomaly of immense proportions. The Assembly is aware but has concealed this information, even from their own member worlds." Within hours, the Assembly delegation requested an emergency meeting. Zixtal's demeanor had transformed completely, its patterns displaying what the translation system identified as urgent cooperation. "The Galactic Assembly proposes immediate joint action regarding a critical situation." The coordinator began without preamble. "A Class 5 spatial distortion has been detected approaching populated systems. This phenomenon transcends political considerations." "Interesting timing," Dr. Chen observed. "Does this emergency coincide with your suppression fleet's approach?" Zixtal's patterns shifted to complex configurations that defy translation. "The Assembly acknowledges tactical miscalculations regarding Earth civilization. The suppression initiative has been recalled. We propose immediate technological cooperation to address the spatial anomaly, which threatens all sentient life in this sector." The true nature of the crisis became clear as the Assembly shared their data. A massive rift in spacetime was expanding from the galactic core, destabilizing star systems in its path. Assembly scientists had been monitoring it for centuries, believing it contained and manageable, until recent acceleration had transformed it into an existential threat. "Our models indicate total sector destabilization within 12 standard cycles," Kurax explained, "geometric components spinning in patterns of mathematical calculation. Conventional containment methods have proven ineffective." Dr. Chen studied the data carefully. "The distortion patterns match theoretical models from our dimensional research. This appears to be a natural manifestation of the same principles that underlie our displacement drive." "Precisely," Zixtal confirmed, patterns shifting to what their translation system now recognized as reluctant admiration. "The Assembly restricted displacement technology because of this very risk. However, your implementation has achieved stability parameters our scientists believed impossible." The irony wasn't lost on humanity's leadership. The very technology the Assembly had dismissed and later feared might now be their salvation. "We require your displacement technology to create a cascading dimensional buffer," Zixtal continued. "In return, the Assembly offers full diplomatic recognition and technological exchange." "As equals," President Adebayo insisted. "As equals," Zixtal conceded, its patterns resolving into formal agreement configuration. The crisis created an opportunity unprecedented in galactic history. With the Free Collective representatives present, their existence shocking the Assembly delegation, a new coalition began to form. The rigid hierarchical structure that had defined galactic politics for millennia gave way to a collaborative approach born of necessity. Over the next 3 months, as the spatial anomaly continued its advance, scientists from Earth, the Assembly, and the Free Collective worked together at Phoenix Station. The human displacement drive was adapted into a massive stabilization system deployed at strategic points along the anomaly's projected path. When the final activation sequence initiated, Dr. Chen stood alongside Coordinator Zixtal and Elder Vex in Phoenix Station's command center, watching as the culmination of their combined knowledge created a cascading dimensional buffer that gradually contained and then reversed the anomaly's expansion. It would seem, Zixtal observed as the threat receded that the Assembly's evaluation of human potential was significantly flawed. Perhaps, Dr. Chen replied, the flaw was in believing any species' potential can be accurately predicted and constrained. 6 months later, representatives from 27 civilizations, including the 7 Assembly elder species, the 18 free collective refugees, and humanity, gathered on neutral ground to sign the Galactic Concordat. The document established a new framework for interstellar relations, one based on cooperation and mutual respect rather than hierarchical control. As Dr. Chen, now approaching her 70th year, signed on behalf of humanity, she reflected on the journey that had begun with a simple, defiant message. The stars are not for you. Humanity had refused to accept that limitation. In doing so, they had changed not only their own destiny, but the course of galactic civilization itself. The stars, it turned out, belonged to everyone willing to reach for them on their own terms.